Good morning, my online econ students. Happy Monday to you. Beginning week 3 now, a couple of announcements and just a rundown of the week for you. And one ask of me, as I'll be sharing something with you in the email, so you've probably already seen it. Start us off, I thought I'd give you something personal to share with you, as we don't have that continued contact that we're used to. To set it up, I'll show you. Here's a book of mine. It's one of those like write it, fill it in type of books. It's called Minnesota Reflections. It was given to me back when I was in college by a person that I worked with. I worked at a green mill out in Plymouth as a server and then later a bartender. And one of the servers I worked with, her name was Kathy. She was kind of like the mother to everybody. And several of my roommates also worked at green mill. And so she gave all of us this Minnesota Reflections book, and she put a few recipes in it and words of wisdom. And I just happened to pull it out over the weekend and look at it because with the holidays coming up, my wife and I won't be in person with our families. We'll have an opportunity to Zoom with them. But one of my family traditions is to have a certain type of meal, seafood, and then my mom's homemade mushroom soup. And I thought I had put the recipe for it in this book, so I was sifting through it and just looking at it page by page. Turns out I didn't have the recipe in there, so I had to get it from my mom anyway. But one of the words of wisdom from Kathy LaValle, the co-worker of mine, that she wrote in here, I thought was just a really nice one to pass along for anybody, not just students, but for people in general. So I want to read the passage that she wrote in there. She said, "The patient person accepts a certain amount of failure, knowing that it is important to thread in the fabric of life, as is success. Great individuals make great successes out of failures." And so I've always thought, to simplify that, what I used to tell my soccer players is you have to expect to make mistakes. You can't learn how to stand up unless you have fallen down. So I think those are just good words of wisdom to keep in mind as you continue your path through econ and later in life as well. Along with that, then, I just wanted to make sure everyone's aware I updated the grade book this morning. Assignments from last week that have yet to be submitted have been marked as missing, which means that it appears as a 0 in the grade book. Just bear in mind those zeros are not permanent. You can go back and complete those assignments and turn them in for the full value that you earn on them. If you are looking for them and you're thinking, aren't they going to be in the completed folder or in the current folder? No, they've moved to the completed folder. So make sure you're checking there for the old assignments, because now when I click on it, you'll see you've got week 1 and week 2 is in there. All right, so let's do a rundown of what we're looking at this week. In our current folder, week 3 appears, and we are continuing with level 2, market forces. And now, instead of focusing on the behavior of buyers and our value for goods and services, that's only one half of what determines prices for goods. The other half is the supply side, or the seller behavior, and really not so much behavior, but the costs it is for sellers to produce goods. When their costs of production increase, that means that they're going to have to raise the price of, or look for anyway, a higher price to be able to make more of a product. And if they can't raise that price, if the market won't bear it, then they can't make as much of it. And that's what you'll discover as we go through the first half of the week with supply. Then by midweek, you should have supply, hopefully a good understanding of it. And then you'll be looking at market equilibrium, which is when you put the supply and demand curve together on the same graph. When those two curves intersect each other, that establishes what is the market or ideal price for that product. Now, we've been talking about shifts over the course of last week and this week. And so what you have to understand about the supply and demand curves is that they are constantly in flux, meaning that they're moving left and right. And so that X is kind of a moving target. And when we analyze it, we're trying to take a snapshot of the market. So we freeze it in time and we take a look at, well, what is the equilibrium price? And if an event occurs, what's that going to do? Not only to the price, but to the quantity available. So what's going to be produced and what's going to be purchased. So you will discover all of that throughout this week. And then the week culminates with the level 2 exit ticket. So there are, I believe, 5 questions that you need to respond to. You will be asked to do some graphing on the exam. So I think if you're using your desktop or a laptop, you probably need to use your trackpad or your mouse to be able to draw. And if for some reason that doesn't work, get in contact with me and we'll come up with some solutions. All right, so don't hesitate to reach out to me if you encounter any difficulties this week. I think what I am going to do is also send out a reminder on Wednesday to everybody that Thursday at 1 o'clock, I'd love to do a check-in with you if you need help. What I'm going to call it is just a review session for level 2. I do have extra materials that we can look at together, but I guess I'd prefer to just have the floor be open and be able to answer your specific questions. So Thursday at 1 o'clock, we're going to be using, and let me go back to our main page here. We'll be using the Google Meet the whole class. So you can click on the green button at 1 o'clock on Thursday. It'll take you to our Google Meet room where we can do a group review session for those of you that are interested in it. Won't be required, but it'll be another opportunity for you to get your attendance for the week. So bear in mind also with attendance, if you complete all your work for the week, that counts as you're present for the week. Otherwise, if you get some work done and you check in with me either via Schoology Messenger or via email, those are the best ways to create contacts. And remember, SoWashCo Online is asking that you have at least 3 contacts per week. So that's what I am looking for from you there. The last thing that I wanted to mention to you today is in this email, I'm also sending a link to a student survey. And so you'll receive this when you click on that link. It's going to ask what you think. Now, we're in our trial run through online work and really distance learning. And so they are very similar. The difference with online learning is, of course, you have consciously made the decision to do an online course and we can run it more asynchronous. In other words, not in real time. You can go at your own pace. Your peers that are doing distance learning, and for yourself, if you're doing distance learning on some of your other courses, you know that those are more synchronous in nature, or they have both elements to it. So when you read through here, what it'll ask you for is just some input on the pacing of this class, pacing of all your classes combined. I'm just curious in seeing where you're at with distance learning and online learning, and whether things are overwhelming or if they're underwhelming or if they're just fine and you're handling it a-okay. What type of activities that you prefer, because that will help me as I continue to refine the course and add to it, and also understand that group work and breakout rooms, that may be more applicable to my distance learning class than it is my online learning, because we're not all in the same place at the same time with online. Then I just ask a question about breakout rooms, and that, again, more geared toward distance learning. But I know for myself, in our staff meetings that we've had over the last 2 weeks, the breakout room has been grossly overused by people presenting. Like, we are in a half-hour meeting and we're in 4 different breakout rooms, and I see the use in them, but I also worry that we overuse them, and maybe if I'm doing it in my class and 2 other teachers are doing it in theirs every day, it loses its value, I guess, is what I would say. Loses its utility, to use the Econ term for it. And then one of the last things that I ask is, how about the organization of this Schoology course? Does the module way that I've set it up, or setting it up with modules, does that make sense to you? Because again, I've tried to model the way this course is organized with online courses that I've taken in grad school. And then lastly, just looking open-ended question for suggestions that you have that could enhance the course or help me as I move forward. Maybe you've taken some other online courses and there's some tricks that teachers were doing in their class that worked for you that I'm not aware of. So I'm very interested in your feedback. This is important, as an important thing as we do, because as you can see when I write in here, I think sometimes teachers, we think we know what's working for our students, but sometimes when we make assumptions, you know what they say about that. So I really want to hear it from you, because the data that I get back from you is important when I come back into meetings with SoWashCo Online and tell the directors and the schedulers and people, well, this is what students are saying. So I appreciate you taking the time to do that. And I think with that said, that's all I've got for you this week. Again, don't hesitate to reach out if you need any help with anything at all, whether it's econ related or otherwise. And If not, hopefully I will see you on Thursday at 1. And if I don't see you at Thursday at 1, I'll send another message next Monday. So have a great week.